The birth of communism, the utopian future everybody hoped for. What is communism? The political theory of socialism, which gave rise to communism, had been around for hundreds of years by the time a German philosopher named Karl Marx put pen to paper. Marx, also known as the father of communism, spent most of his life in exile in Great Britain and France. He wrote the Communist Manifesto in 1848, which later served as the inspiration for the formation of the Communist Party. Communism is also known as Marxism. Marx believed that a truly utopian future must be classless and stateless. Marx's main idea was simple: free the lower class from poverty and give the poor a fighting chance. How he believed it should be accomplished, however, was another story. In order to liberate the lower class, Marx believed that the government should have full control of all means of production, so that no one could outdo anyone else by making more money. Unfortunately, that proves to this day to be more difficult than he might have realized at the time. Marx described three necessary phases towards achieving his idea of utopia. Phase 1. A revolution must take place in order to overthrow the existing government. Marx emphasized the need of total destruction for the existing system in order to move to phase 2. A dictator or leader or leaders must gain absolute control over proletariat. During this phase, the new government exerts absolute control over the common citizen's personal choices, including his or her education, religion, employment, and even marriage. Collectivization of property and wealth must also take place. Phase 3. Achievement of Utopia. This phase has never been attained because it requires that all non-communists be destroyed in order for the Communist Party to achieve supreme equality. In a Marxist utopia, everyone would happily share property and wealth, free from restrictions that class-based systems require. The government would control all means of production so that the one-class system would remain constant, with no possibility of any middle-class citizens rising back to the top. Why was Russia communist? When Tsar Nicholas was dethroned in 1917, Vladimir Lenin was in exile in Switzerland for playing a part in some previous anti-Tsar plots. When he heard of the uprising, Lenin cut a deal with Germany. If the Germans could transport him back home, he would get Russia to back out of World War I. The Germans agreed and snuck him back into the Petrograd through a railway car. The Communist Party was about to gather more steam. Leon Trotsky, a Russian revolutionary who had escaped from prison and fled to America, returned to Russia to serve as Lenin's right-hand man. Trotsky is largely credited for engineering the Bolshevik Revolution. Because the Russian provisional government supported the war effort, it didn't last very long. Many people shifted loyalties to the Bolsheviks, Lenin's pro-communist party, which opposed the war. When the revolution struck, the Bolsheviks used this momentum to overthrow the provisional government. Lenin's Red God Army took control of the Winter Palace, former home of the Tsar and later the provisional government's headquarters, effectively overturning the provisional government, and true to his word, Lenin pulled Russia out of the war. But some Russians still were not sure about the Bolsheviks. Lenin endeavored to gain support from broadcasting slogans such as bread, land, peace, and all power to the Soviets. To people suffering from famine, this promise hit the spot. Yet, in elections for the Russian Constituent Assembly in late November 1917, only a quarter of voters cast ballots for the Bolsheviks. Lenin overturned the results and sent armed guards to prevent meetings of the Democratic Assembly. This made it virtually impossible for the Russian people to voice their concerns in a democratic way. The years from 1917 to 1920 became known as War Communism due to the methods the Bolsheviks used to push their political agenda. In 1918, the party was renamed the Russian Communist Party. Lenin and his communist cohorts endeavored to put Marx's tenets of belief into practice. This marked the beginning of the Russian Civil War, which lasted from 1918 to 1922. When the war ended, the Soviet Union was formed, also known as the USSR. The Soviet Union included Russia and 15 bordering states. Lenin was aware that the upper class wouldn't willingly give up land or wealth, so he created the New Economic Policy, NEP, to legislate redistributing land, taking it from the nobility and giving it to the poor. Upholding the necessary phase that Marx outlined, Lenin initiated the Red Terror, a threatening fear campaign led by the Bolsheviks.